There is no question that America is facing its toughest battle regarding gun ownership, and everyone here in America has unleashed all their crazy. Seriously, this is one of the strongest fights I've ever seen for and against sensible gun control in my entire life. And many concerned gun owners whose assholes are already starting to pucker up as I begin here tonight think the government and liberals want to take away all the guns. Wait, is that actually true? The government wants to take away all the guns? Well, how about this? How will all the mentally unstable, racist white guys who've been consistently involved in mass shootings here in America go on another killing spree in a school or a church without any guns? Seriously, how the fuck are all the good cowboys who are too scared to enter the school during an active shooter, even though it's the exact job they're trained to do, going to fight all the bad cowboys if America has no guns, dummy? What's that? Oh, that's just a scare tactic used by gun lobbying groups like the NRA against sensible gun control. And that right there is just the beginning of this problem. Certain rational people, like myself, would like sensible gun control. And to clarify, that includes closing gun show loopholes, stricter background checks to make sure a person buying a killing machine hasn't committed a violent crime in the past and has some basic training on how to operate a firearm safely. Just like getting a driver's license. And those responsible adults that are legally allowed to purchase a firearm must register that gun just like we do with every car in the United States. Groups like the NRA will push the narrative that gun control means all the guns will be taken away. And a national gun registry is just the first step in the government's systematic plan to use said registry to go door to door and take away all the guns from those poor citizens that were authorized to legally purchase those killing machines in the first place. And 14 states already have laws on the books called the red flag laws, which allows local police who feel a citizen is either a danger to themselves or the community can file an affidavit with the court to legally confiscate that person's firearms for 14 days. And lucky for us, Vice News went to Seattle, where this red flag law is in full effect, and rode along to see the process in action. Take a look.
You guys have taken one gun off him. I took 7 off of him, and the case just keeps getting continued.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. This is a very important day for the people of Illinois.
Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner signed a bill on July 16th that enacted a so-called red flag law that allows police to take guns away from someone a court decides is a potential danger. New York is trying to follow suit. It would be the 14th state with a red flag law. Washington was one of the first. And officers there are already doing the difficult work of identifying people who might be threats.
So that's the bad one, right? That's the bad gun?
In late May, the Seattle police broke down Brian Smith's door and confiscated all of his guns. They were able to do that because of a new Washington state law that lets police seize firearms from people deemed unfit to keep them. It's called an Extreme Risk Protection Order, or ERPO. In Seattle, the final decision about when to ERPO someone has to come from a judge. But it all starts with Sergeant Eric Piskonski and the officers in his crisis response unit.
The way the process works is, we fill out that affidavit, we petition the court, we get a temporary order, we go serve that temporary order. Part of that service is, hey, you have a court date in 14 days, right? So that the respondent gets their opportunity to go to court in front of a judge and give their side of it.
You're describing a very rational, reasonable process on a subject that really does not have a lot of rational, reasonable discourse these days.
I think the process that's in place right now, at least the one that we have here in Washington, so far it's worked out pretty well.
Since the law went into effect last year, Seattle police have considered about 5,000 cases for possible gun removal. So far, they've moved forward with 30 of them.
If I think of anything else, I'll give you a call. Okay, thanks. Bye. Currently, I have 2 extreme risk protection order cases. One involving a gentleman who inherited a bunch of money and decided to purchase a bunch of firearms.
That gentleman is Brian Smith, whose guns were confiscated back in May. His neighbors reported feeling unsafe around him.
It all started when he consumed a whole bunch of alcohol, started firing off rounds at crows and stuff like that. So it was posing a little bit of danger to his neighbors. So we petitioned for a extreme risk protection order to take his firearms away.
Because Smith didn't show, the ERPO was extended. News Chan had to deliver in a summons.
So 2 houses down, 8248 is Brian Smith. I've been working on an ERPO on him since May. You guys have taken 1 gun off of him. I took 7 off of him, and the case just keeps getting continued. Oh, there he is, hold on. He's right in the back.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Smith was home when the police arrived, and they served him the papers.
I'm glad that worked out.
Mr. Smith. How are you? I'm Josh.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
It's Captain.
Captain. How you doing, Captain Smith?
Hi, John.
So they took some guns from you, is that right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I thought that was kind of snotty because I haven't been accused of anything yet.
Yeah. Do you know about this new law that allows them to do this?
Yeah, the extreme risk protection order.
Yeah. Do you think that you qualify for that?
Risk to who? Whom? You? You? You?
Yeah.
I think there was no victim. Let me get a... See, I'm drinking alcohol. I've got guns. There was a Thompson Center 54 caliber muzzleloader here. 38 Special Ladysmith was in the bedroom, so I have access to it in a case. And he unloaded that, took it, and then he took all the cartridges in there.
This isn't Smith's first run-in with the law. This competency assessment, in a separate criminal case, found him to exhibit a number of symptoms of mental illness and alcoholism. Smith refutes the findings.
He writes the evaluation, he goes, "Oh, Mr. Smith is an alcoholic, he's deluded, grandiose, whatever it is." He just slams me because I think he was mad because I was in control of the interview because I'm smarter. It was incredible to me that they could just decide they're going to use this new law against a citizen of the United States with constitutional rights with no justification.
Earlier this month, a judge granted the full-year ERPO against Smith. Smith's mental state wasn't central to the ERPO order.
We're never ever saying we should take away their rights forever and that they shouldn't have guns for the rest of their life. We're saying let's take a pause here and breath and see if you are, mentally okay to have a gun.
Just as a practical matter, right? You're a cop and you're encountering people who you can see that they pose a danger, but without this tool, what are you going to do?
It's what we did before, just kind of monitor people.
Sit around and wait.
Yeah. Wait to see what happens.
But potentially wait for something terrible to happen too.
Potentially, yes. So it does make me sleep better at night.
In all honesty, the red flag laws are some of the most rational laws I've ever seen in this country. And I understand that some gun enthusiasts will disagree with the red flag law just by itself. But in this particular case, we would have to agree it's the absolute right call to take away this man's firearms. That's how gun control needs to be dealt with, on a case-by-case basis. We just can't allow all citizens to own firearms. That's insane! Prime example. The gentleman in this Vice News clip is obviously mentally unfit to own firearms, and he clearly lacks the capacity to respect a gun's life-taking power. Shit, this man even lacks the capacity to start tidying up when a fucking news crew shows up to his house. We all have to agree. This is the most rational way to go about gun control. If a community can reach a consensus that a particular individual should not be allowed to legally own firearms, I think that's the most practical and fairest way to handle these situations. Now, I know many gun-owning citizens will argue that the Second Amendment is our constitutional right for gun ownership. But unfortunately, I don't think anyone has fully read the Second Amendment because we only hear the phrase, the right to bear arms. which is 5 words out of an entire paragraph that literally begins with the sentence, a well-regulated militia. So I'd have to argue that the Second Amendment is talking about one establishing well-regulated militias, which, by the way, a well-regulated militia is needed for the security of a free state. The rights of its citizens to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the government hasn't infringed on that right, because all of the United States well-regulated militias, such as the Army or the Navy, even local police, are comprised of U.S. citizens bearing arms, just like the Second Amendment states. I think people are making a huge leap in suggesting that the Second Amendment is read to allow every U.S. citizen the right to own a gun. People like NRA spokeswoman Dana Loesch. To Miss Dana Loesch, let's be honest with ourselves. There are people in both of our lives right now that we would not want to own a gun. Like, I'm sure you think that about your husband and his pretentious mustache for dudes who peaked in high school. Shit, we can probably think of at least 15 other people off the top of our heads that we would not want to own a firearm ever. Ever! And I'm sure most of the 15 we're thinking about are either related to you or President Trump himself. But then again, I actually wouldn't mind if Eric Trump had a gun, because he'd be that dummy that shoots himself by mistake at Easter brunch. But what's most confusing is Ms. Loesch has conflicting talking points regarding gun control. For example, in the aftermath of the Parkland shooting in Florida, Ms. Loesch was adamant that the police or the FBI, who were called on Nicholas Cruz some 16 to 18 times, should have done something. I'm guessing something similar to the red flag laws, if there was such a law in place in Florida at the time, but I'm sure the NRA would have cried unconstitutional if that were the case anyway. But in the same breath, Ms. Loesch and the NRA want the government out of the business of gun control. And yes, the police and FBI were called on Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz like 18 times. But there's nothing they could have done legally. Hashtag why we need more red flag laws. Because reading through some of the police complaints, Mr. Cruz is certainly mentally unfit to own firearms. And if you think otherwise, here's just a little taste. According to the police reports, Nicholas Cruz had been caught shooting the neighbor's chickens, sicking his dog on the neighbor's pigs, stealing mail, vandalizing property, and peeking in his neighbor's windows. And that's just the tip of this mentally disturbed iceberg. Because he's also found in school with bullets in his backpack, and Cruz was finally suspended when he brought knives to school. Also, other students had mentioned that Mr. Cruz had always been known to be mentally ill, and he would kill and torture animals, which is your first sign that you have a serial killer on your hands. But regardless of what the police or FBI should have done or didn't do, gun control needs to start in the communities. For example, to the parents or guardians and neighbors that were calling the police and FBI on Mr. Cruz, if you folks are calling the FBI on this kid 18 times, why the fuck would you allow him to own firearms in the first place? If I was Cruz's stepbrother, I would have been like, dude, you're not allowed to own a fucking butter knife, let alone multiple assault rifles, because just looking at you, I'm 100% positive you're gonna brutally kill me in my sleep. Yes, sometimes stereotyping works. Case in point, Nicholas Cruz and Harvey Weinstein. Just looking at these two fucking guys, you know the exact crimes they would be guilty of, even if you already didn't know the crimes they committed. And look, I don't want to take anyone's guns away, unless you're torturing animals for fun or have a felony conviction, especially if that felony was for a violent crime. Because I think we can all agree, if you're able to torture animals or beat somebody to death with a baseball bat, you'll probably be able to shoot someone in the fucking face pretty easily. Basically, if you're a sober, mentally competent adult who hasn't committed a violent crime and has been trained on basic gun safety and can pass a series of exams demonstrating that knowledge, both written and field training, like getting a driver's license, those adults can legally own and register a gun in the United States. But this idea that every man, woman, and child in the United States has the right to own a gun for their protection is downright ludicrous. And I can't believe I even have to say this to grown adults in America, but owning a firearm is not a constitutional right. It's often said that guns owned by sensible adults in the US are owned to fight against governmental tyranny. But those same sensible gun owners refuse to register their legally obtained firearms because they fear that the National Gun Registry will be used to eventually take those guns away. And this is where I get really confused. Because if we go through the process and the state allows you to purchase a killing machine legally and it's registered, but then the government uses that registry to come and take those guns away outside of a red flag law situation, that's the exact fucking tyranny those registered guns should be fighting. The whole reason gun owners say they want to own guns in the United States is to fight against tyranny, right? So why now all of a sudden are gun owners scared of tyranny coming along? Because I'll be completely honest, I would like to buy a gun for myself, but I know nothing about guns. I never shot a gun, I never held a gun. And honestly, I don't want to bring a gun into my home until I have extensive training on how to safely operate that killing machine. Probably because I'm a responsible adult and I don't want to be killed by my own stupidity. But most Americans just want to dive right into gun ownership, and that's a major problem in itself. Now we have a person who's looking to buy a killing machine quickly because they're under the false perception that the government's going to take all the guns away. And they have no idea how to operate this killing machine and will learn as they go. No, do not do that. That is a recipe for disaster. That's exactly how innocent people at parties get shot and killed. We've seen it 100 times here in America. Even a well-trained FBI agent fucked up because alcohol told this nerdy white dude, go ahead and break out that killer backflip you were working on, Scotty! And one of my favorite arguments against sensible gun control is we need to protect what's ours. And fuck, if that sentence isn't American, I don't know what is. But first, and I don't mean to be a dick here, but I have to ask, what the fuck do we actually own? I'm assuming most of us have a mortgage on our homes, or like me, you're paying rent somewhere, so technically the bank or someone other than us own the home. Plus, and I'm only assuming here, but even if you don't have a mortgage, I'm sure you're paying property taxes or a condo association fee every month. So if you really think you own your home, try not paying that shit for 90 days and see how that goes. This idea that we own property is really just a cruel joke. You're basically renting land until your family name dies out. Now don't get me wrong, I understand wanting to protect your family from harm, but I don't think anyone needs 6 AR-15s with hollow tip armor-piercing bullets. I think a simple shotgun or handgun would be more than enough firepower to protect what you think is yours but is actually owned by somebody else. Now, I know some gun-toting adults say they need these killing machines for hunting, and I personally think it's so fucking cute that grown men and women think what they're actually doing is hunting. Because I don't think dressing up in camo and setting out a deer lick or using a duck whistle while you and your buddies drink beer in a tree until an unarmed animal approaches you so you can try and shoot it in the face is technically hunting. That sounds more like entrapment. Seriously, if you really want to go hunting, I suggest going bow hunting. Or, better yet, stretch out those hamstrings and put a knife in between your teeth and take off running in the woods until you kill something with your bare hands. Now that's fucking hunting. But all joking aside, you don't need a goddamn assault rifle to go hunting. If you do, I think it's time for you to select a hobby you're actually good at. Like building model cars in your nana's basement until she calls you upstairs for supper. I'll be up in a minute, Grandma! And of course, like all debates, the great gun debate will also take these wild turns, and gun enthusiasts will present these crazy, off-the-wall what-ifs. For example, citizens will argue, but Rick, what if the US government does go tyrannous, and we the people can no longer trust the police or military? And that's seriously a great question. If the US government went tyrannous, no offense, but that's a huge stretch of the imagination. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that would mean that mostly all of the generals and admirals, other commanding officers, Navy SEALs, whole army platoons, and even local police departments who've sworn an oath to protect this country from tyranny, both foreign and domestic, would have to align themselves with said tyranny. Sure, some people in power may take the evil path, but to suggest that everyone in the entire United States Armed Forces would side with tyranny is a huge leap, and I would label that as an irrational fear. Plus, if the US government went tyrannous, I really don't want you and your crazy cousin Earl all hopped up on meth to be our front lines of defense. You two dummies are only going to get us killed faster. And not to be a Derek Downer here, But the government spends billions of dollars annually on their defenses. Not 1 or 2 billion, but like tens of billions of dollars on defense systems. Prime example, the government has killer drones. They don't even need to send armed personnel to find and kill you. They'll send a drone that you won't even see nor hear that will blow you to smithereens while you're leaving your local Dollar General store one quiet Wednesday afternoon. Just ask President Obama how efficient those drone killings are. Ba-boom! Also, let's not forget, the US government has tons of nuclear missiles. Missiles that could destroy the entire planet and make it inhabitable for millions of years to come. And you think that you and your racist stepdaddy stockpiling a few AR-15s is going to do the trick? Ha! This isn't 1776 anymore, where everyone's on the same playing field armed with a powdered wig and a musket that takes 2.5 minutes to fucking reload one shot. They have aircraft carriers. Fucking warships so goddamn big, they actually carry platoons of other deadly vehicles that could destroy your entire state. And of course, I'm not suggesting that US citizens simply roll over and die, but we don't need every man, woman, and child to own a gun in this country. That's just a ridiculous and scary thought. Because a large majority of you out there are very irresponsible adults. Seriously, I hate to say it, and I'm no angel myself, but Christ, some of you out there are really, really irresponsible people. And once again, rational people like myself are only interested in sensible gun laws that will make getting a killing machine a little more difficult, and to make sure those guns are registered. That's all. But I find it kind of disturbing that when discussing illegal immigration in this country, the argument often used by US citizens is that America needs to know who these people are before letting them into the country. Immigrants need to be heavily vetted because they could be murderers or part of MS-13 or a terrorist organization, right, Tucker Carlson? And to that I say, why can't Americans use that same racist thought pattern for gun ownership? Don't we want to know who these people are that want to buy a killing machine? Find out through stricter background checks if they committed a violent crime in the past or have been institutionalized? Seriously, what is so terrible about finding out if the person wanting to buy one of these firearms is able to handle the responsibility of owning a device that could take a person's life in an instant? And sure, it won't solve the problem 100%, but I guarantee it will accomplish more than just shrugging our shoulders and repeating the same idiotic phrase, the right to bear arms, bro. We truly need the gun-owning adults in this country and people like NRA spokeswoman Dana Loesch to stop perpetuating this idea that Americans wanting sensible gun control want to take all the guns away. Because that's not what is being asked at all. Actually, we need US citizens owning guns. Just not every citizen. And if you're one of those people who thinks every US citizen should own a gun, come to Hollywood and hang out for a few days. Because I guarantee, after you see some of the nuttiness out here, you'll change your tune real fucking quick. Seriously, I think it's the literal definition of insane to have all this unchecked gun violence in schools and communities around the country and not do a damn thing about it. It's fucking stupid of all of us, gun lover or not. But some communities are so fed up with gun violence, they're starting to take things into their own hands.
Yup.
See that big brown house?
Yup.
It's right there.
Yup.
Go, where'd he go? Man, y'all running out, big.
Police say the so-called paintball war began on social media as someone's idea to help stop the violence.
Me and Smoke and my guy Dude. It was really his idea. He like, we started a paintball fight. Who we gonna beef with? And I'm like, me and another partner. He's like, the Cooper niggas.
Fuck Cooper, nigga. Yeah, fuck Cooper. Where y'all niggas at, nigga? We on y'all niggas' ass, nigga.
So then I'm like, fuck it. They outside. We gonna pull up and shoot them.
He shot me and my brother unexpected. We talking. It felt like it was a real shootout. We're in the back of a truck. Duck hang out the window, laughing. Yeah.
20, 30 minutes later, they pull up, shoot me down on my house. I thought it was a game. They come right back. Then it became a whole 6 mile first warrant. it just started going real heavy, man. Like real heavy.
That's how we ran around, man. We putting the real guns up, picking the paintballs up, you know what I'm saying? We ran around sliding on everybody. Stop the violence, man.
Nobody's safe.
Nobody's safe, though. We've been traded on each other. Us two.
Paintballs up, guns down. It's basically just doing something positive to keep away from the negative, you know?
Everywhere you go, you will see a gun. Nah, when we started paintballing, everywhere we went, we seen a paintball. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather get hit with a paintball than a bullet.
I mean, to the police, it's gonna look like a real gun, period. No matter what it is. It could be a water gun. To the police, it's gonna look like a real gun.
But they hate it. They hate us, bro, by us being young and black. I'd rather for the city to take the paint off the buildings than picking up dead bodies any day. We already the murder capital. If we can paintball with each other and don't kill each other, what you rather have?
I fucking love this. Gang members in Detroit have traded in their killing guns for paintball guns. Crews can still have their rivalry and turf wars, but members get to live and fight for another day. It's a step in the right direction, because make no mistake, paintballs hurt like hell, and you could definitely get your point across, but at least no one has to lose their life for something so silly as a turf war. But even though I love this idea, and I encourage other violent gangs around the country to do the same and take up paintball, it's still rather sad that violent gangs have more common sense than the people we voted into power that could actually enact serious change here in America. And look, I honestly don't think the gun laws will change in a positive way anytime soon. Maybe if these mass shootings start happening at political fundraisers or at Jeff Sessions' Nazi-themed birthday party, things would start to change because it affected the people of power. But I really doubt it. Because if mass shootings involving young school kids didn't push this country to make sensible changes for gun ownership, I don't think anything will. America needs to realize that gun ownership is the equivalent of having the sword of death. And we're allowing fallible humans to become judge, jury, and executioner with minimal to no requirements at all. And to that I say again, gun ownership in the United States is not a right. It's a fucking privilege.